I walked into that small cafe on a rain-soaked evening in Portland, Oregon, convinced that nothing extraordinary ever happened to people like me, and yet within minutes something in the air felt charged, as if my ordinary life had been quietly waiting for this moment to arrive. The lights were warm, the windows fogged from the cold outside, and the steady hum of strangers talking felt like a protective cocoon. I had come with low expectations and a guarded heart, still bruised from years of disappointment, but the universe had other plans that night, and I had no idea how deeply my life was about to be shaken. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the unexpected ways life brings people together, take a moment right now to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to the channel, because stories like this remind us that love often shows up when we least expect it. Her name was Sarah, a name so simple it felt honest, and from the moment she walked in, there was a quiet confidence about her that immediately put me at ease. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, wasn't hiding behind forced smiles or rehearsed charm. She carried herself like someone who had weathered storms and learned how to stand afterward. We talked for hours without realizing how much time had passed, about growing up in small towns, about dreams that had shifted over the years, about how adulthood rarely looks the way we imagined when we were young. I noticed how she listened carefully, how her eyes softened when I spoke about my late father, and how she laughed in a way that felt genuine, not performative. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was auditioning for love. I felt like I was simply being seen. As the evening went on, I found myself forgetting all the reasons I'd built walls around my heart. My past had taught me to be cautious. I'd been the guy who invested deeply only to be left behind when things got complicated. Relationships had taught me that chemistry alone wasn't enough, and that timing, baggage, and fear often destroyed something beautiful before it could grow. But with Sarah, it felt different. The conversation flowed naturally, the silences were comfortable, and I could feel something hopeful unfolding, something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in a long time. Yet beneath her calm presence there was a subtle weight she carried. I noticed it in the way her smile sometimes faded just a second too soon, in the way she checked her phone with quiet urgency, and in the pauses where it seemed like she was deciding whether or not to say something important. As the rain outside intensified and the cafe began to empty, that unspoken truth hung between us, growing heavier with each passing minute. I sensed that this evening, as perfect as it felt, wasn't the whole story. When she finally shared it, the moment arrived not with drama, but with honesty. She told me, gently and without expectation, that she had a child. She made it clear she understood if that changed everything for me, if I wanted to walk away before things went any further. There was no manipulation in her words, no attempt to soften reality. Just truth, laid bare, and the quiet bravery of someone who had learned that honesty was the only way forward. In that moment, my mind raced through every fear I'd ever had about responsibility, commitment, and the kind of life I thought I was supposed to have. I thought about the freedom I'd grown accustomed to, the simplicity of only being responsible for myself, and the stories I'd told myself about what I could and couldn't handle. I thought about how society teaches us to see single parents as complicated, as emotional risks, as lives already filled to the brim. And I realized how unfair and shallow those assumptions had been. What surprised me most wasn't the fear that surfaced, but the calm that followed. I looked at Sarah, at the strength in her posture and the vulnerability in her eyes, and I understood that her life wasn't a burden. It was a testament. She wasn't asking me to replace anyone or to sacrifice myself. She was simply offering me the truth and the choice to accept it or walk away. And in that choice, I saw more integrity than I had in many relationships that had failed without ever being honest. Over the following days, I couldn't stop thinking about her. I thought about how she balanced her responsibilities with grace, how she had clearly learned to love fiercely and protect what mattered most. I thought about my own life, about how empty my carefully controlled world suddenly felt compared to the fullness she carried. I realized that love wasn't about finding someone without complications, but about choosing someone whose complications were worth embracing. As we continued to see each other slowly and intentionally, I began to understand what it truly meant to grow. There were moments of doubt, moments where fear whispered that I wasn't ready, that I might fail, that I could hurt someone innocent if I made the wrong choice. But there were also moments of profound clarity, moments where I saw how love expands rather than restricts, how it challenges us to become better versions of ourselves. I learned that showing up wasn't about perfection, but about consistency, patience, and humility. Meeting her child for the first time was one of the most humbling experiences of my life. There was no instant bond, no cinematic miracle, just a small human being with cautious eyes, a quiet curiosity, and a heart that had already learned what loss and resilience looked like. And in that simplicity, I felt something shift permanently inside me. I realized that love isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's gentle, earned slowly, and rooted in trust. If this story is touching your heart right now, if it's reminding you of a choice you once faced, or a fear you're still carrying, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who might need encouragement, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps keep stories like this alive. There were challenges, of course. There were nights filled with self-doubt, conversations about boundaries, and moments where the weight of responsibility felt overwhelming. But there was also laughter, quiet mornings, shared meals, and a growing sense of belonging I had never known before. I learned that family isn't always something you're born into. Sometimes it's something you choose, step by step, with intention and love. Before this story ends, I want to ask you something personal. Please comment below and share your thoughts. Do you believe love should come with conditions, or do you believe it grows stronger when we accept the whole truth of someone's life? Looking back now, I understand that the question Sarah gave me that night wasn't really about whether I could handle her having a child. It was about whether I was willing to grow beyond my fears and step into a life that required more courage than comfort. And choosing to stay, choosing to love fully and honestly, became the most meaningful decision I've ever made. This story isn't about perfection or fairy tales. It's about real people, real choices, and the quiet miracles that happen when we stop running from what scares us and start walking toward what matters.